Think you need a strict recipe to make the perfect soilless mix? Think again. You can create the ideal chunky mix every single time, no matter what ingredients you have on hand. Hi, my name is Stephanie. I love talking about my houseplants and sharing tips and tricks on how I care for them with you. I get a lot of questions asking about what chunky mix I use for my houseplants, especially my Hoya. I do have a mix that's my favorite, and if I have those ingredients on hand, I would make that mix. But most of the time, I actually run out of ingredients and try to make do with what I have on hand. And so today, I'm going to show you how you can make a soilless mix with just a few ingredients that you might already have. First things first, why would you ditch soil and make a chunky soilless mix? I don't hate soil, trust me, I don't. I actually still have a few houseplants growing in soil, especially my tree-like plants. But when it comes to some of my more delicate plants, especially my Hoya that prefer to have aeration around the roots, I prefer to go for a soil-less mix. Soil can be a bit compacted at times and can cause root rot. Also, it tends to attract fungus gnats. Literally, I was just talking about fungus gnats. Ew. Chunky mixes tend to be more breathable, it drains better, encourages healthier roots, and it tends to be more versatile. Like I mentioned, this video is not about a strict recipe, it's about principles. Let's get started. When making your chunky mix, always consider the plant that you're hoping to use the mix for. Is it a plant that gets rotted very easily? Is it a plant that's really thirsty and needs more hydration? Think about those things before you make your mix for that plant. I'm going to make a balanced mix, one that I could use for different kinds of plants because I'm going to pop my plants into self-watering pots, and that will help make things a lot easier for me. If you're not going to use self-watering pots, you may want to customize your mix a little bit more in order to suit the plant that you're going to use it for. Here are 3 things you'd really want to keep in mind when putting your chunky mix together. When selecting your ingredients for your mix, you want to include ingredients that help with aeration and drainage. This will help oxygen to pass between the roots so they can breathe. It will also help the medium to be less compacted, and especially if you're not using a self-watering pot, this will allow water to pass through and escape without rotting the roots. Here are some ingredients that can help you with aeration and drainage. The first one, and probably one of the most popular ingredients, is perlite. Not just any perlite though. For your chunky mix, you're looking for chunky perlite. Chunky perlite tends to have larger particles rather than your non-chunky perlite, which breaks down quite easily and becomes very dusty. Your next ingredient, which is one we talked about recently in my DIY pond video, is pumice. Pumice is heavier, porous, and doubles as moisture retention and aeration. Another great ingredient that encourages drainage and aeration is chunky orchid bark. Large orchid bark are chunky pieces that help to create gaps in your substrate. Another very popular ingredient when it comes to aeration is leca. Leca is round pellets that add airflow and prevent compaction. These are some of the ingredients that you can add to your chunky mix to help encourage aeration and drainage. Your next ingredient for your chunky mix needs to encourage water retention or moisture retention. Even if your mix is chunky and you want to encourage aeration, you also want it to maintain water to some degree, or else you'll be watering your plants way more often than you'd like. You'd want an ingredient that holds just enough water to keep the roots from drying out too much, but also not too much so that it doesn't rot the root. Some great ingredients that do that are orchid bark. It's able to absorb water and release it slowly. Another ingredient that can hold on to water is tree fern fiber. It's spongy and fibrous and holds on to water as well. Another ingredient that holds on to moisture is sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is useful if your environment is very dry. Pumice, although we mentioned is great for drainage, is also porous, which means that it's able to absorb water and hold it inside, while giving you the benefits of aerating the soil as well because it's so chunky. Thirdly, you'd want to add an element to your mix that encourages structure and stability. This is actually a step that I've forgotten in the past. This gives your roots something to grab onto and also keeps your pots from being overly tippy and makes them a little bit more substantial. Some ingredients that do that are orchid bark. The roots are able to grab onto this beautifully. Another ingredient, lava rock. Lava rock is heavy, will give your mix some weight and will help keep the pot from tipping easily. Another ingredient that will not surprise you is pumice. Yes, pumice is like the triple threat. It absorbs water, it's chunky, but it also will help to stabilize your pot as well. With these three pillars, aeration and drainage, moisture retention, and structure and stability, you'll be able to create an excellent chunky mix with some of the ingredients that fall into the category of these three. You can keep your mix simple by just adding 3 ingredients, or you can actually layer up and add multiples of those 3 categories that I've mentioned. There's a 4th pillar that's optional, and I call it optional because a lot of your ingredients, especially the tree fern fiber, will be able to do this as well. And this is nutrition holding capacity. It's like the pantry effect. You want to have an ingredient in your mix that's able to not hold on to moisture, but hold on to nutrients as well. Ingredients that do this include, you guessed it, tree fern fiber. Another ingredient that's great for that is charcoal. I really love charcoal because it helps to remove impurities in your mix and is also able to hold on to nutrients. Another ingredient that does this as well is zeolite. Zeolite is porous and it is rich in minerals. I talk about it a lot more in my DIY pond making video. Another ingredient that's able to hold on to nutrients is cocoa husks. Apart from perlite, cocoa husk is probably one of my most used ingredients in my mixes because I bought a huge batch of it at Costco. Cocoa husk actually outperforms bark when it comes to holding on to nutrients. So there you have it, your 3 and possibly 4 pillars to help you make your ideal chunky mix. Now that we've got that under our belt, I'm going to show you which ingredients that I'm selecting today from those 4 pillars to create my chunky mix. After that, I'm going to repot my Hoya SPF Bretonnier or my Hoya DS70. Like I mentioned, I have made many variations of this mix. Some I've enjoyed more than others. I noticed that some plants, specifically my Anthurium, they don't quite enjoy when I make my mix too tree fern fiber heavy. Because tree fern fiber can absorb quite a bit of nutrition or fertilizer, you'd want to be careful how much fertilizer you use when watering your plants that are rich in tree fern fiber. I've burned a lot of my houseplants, especially my Anthurium, that are sitting in a mix which is high in tree fern fiber because I over-fertilize, basically. Be careful with that. But this mix is going to be used primarily for Hoya. For aeration and drainage, I'm going to rely on chunky perlite in order to do that. I've already used up all of my pumice making my DIY pond mix. So honestly, this is what I have a lot of right now. So I'm gonna put a lot in here. I'm not gonna give specific amounts. I'm literally going to eyeball it. So let's see how it goes. All right, let's pop the perlite to a side. The ingredient that I'm going to use today for moisture retention is tree fern fiber. So I'm just going to start with what I have over here first. Now, tree fern fiber is an ingredient that expands quite a bit when it's wet, just like sphagnum moss. So be sure to watch how much of it you place into your substrate. I'm actually going to wet it beforehand. So I've wetted beforehand just to reduce the dust a little bit and also to show how it looks when it's wet. So this is it here. I prefer to work with it when it's wet, even if it's less fun to work with it when it's wet, but it gives me an idea of how it's going to behave, how the portion amount that I put in my mix is going to behave. It's when my plant is watered. All right, so that's the amount that I'm going to start with for now. I'm just going to start small and then keep adding as I go. The next ingredient that I'm going to add, this one is for stability, orchid bark. So I'm just going to add some from over here. Okay, just gonna pop it, just transfer it, no waste, right? I have just a little bit of cocoa husks left, so I'm gonna use it up in this mix. Honestly, this is the ingredient that I typically reach for the most, but since this is literally all I have left, I went out and got me some orchid bark since I've actually never used that ingredient before. Now, when you're adding cocoa husks in a mix that also has tree fern fiber, Again, you want to be careful because that's going to hold on to a lot of nutrition. I've also used cocoa coir in the past and I still have it, but it's honestly not one of my favorite ingredients to use. And it could be because I think I got an contaminated batch. So today I'm going to avoid it. Just ignore my stain. I got some dirt on me. Now, as you can see, it's definitely very much so perlite heavy. You can see way more perlite than any of the other ingredients. So right now we can see that it's really aerated. So we need to add a little bit more water retention. I'm gonna add a little bit more tree fern, but again, it's something that instead of pouring it over, I wanna wet it ahead of time, like I mentioned. All right, so it's nice and hydrated. So I'm just going to now just sprinkle it over top. I'm just gonna keep mixing until visually my mix looks nice and balanced. A balanced amount of aeration, stability, and moisture retention. I actually really like the way it looks. So again, I'm just eyeballing my mix. I'm just gonna keep mixing and just eyeball it. Every time you make a new mix with a new combination of ingredients, it is going to behave differently. It is even going to behave differently, like I mentioned, depending on the plant that you use it for. So you've got to notice how your substrate behaves in your conditions. I may have more light than you. I may have less light than you. So my mix may dry out faster or slower than if you made the exact mix for your conditions. So I was actually about to add some more tree fern, but as I kept mixing and the tree fern kept breaking apart, look at how much more tree fern we have. See? So I think I'm pretty happy with this mix. It looks quite aerated, but it also has a good amount of moisture retention. All right, this is my finished product. Say hello to my Hoya Bertonier. It's one of my favorites. It has had its fair share of appearances on my channel. All right, so it has been blooming like crazy, but as you will see, it is terribly root bound in here, like terribly. So that's it over here, wow. And I have to water it like very regularly. I think the wick is a lost cause. I don't think I'm gonna get it back out. And I'm losing a lot of wicks to plants, to taking too long to repot them. I need to get that. I need to stop. I need to stop that. Okay, so I'm going to use, I know my table is really messy, I'm sorry, but I'm going to use this self-watering pot. It's way bigger than the pot that the DS70 is in, but that Hoya is so resilient. I think it's gonna be just fine. Also, my mix is quite airy. It's a very nice balanced mix, so I'm not worried about the plant being overwatered in there. It definitely needs a bath. It is so dusty, the plant that is. All right, so just like with when I'm using pon, I lace my self-watering pot through. I'm going to put a little bit of my mixture in here and pull the wick up so that it's among the mixture and sort of in the pot, not just sitting on the very bottom. So let's get the plant out of the way. So I've lost my wick. There it is. So I'm just gonna pull my wick up just a little bit and then pop my mixture around it. All right, but again, make sure your wick is not too high because then it's not gonna reach the bottom of your pot. So try to find that balance. And sometimes I tug down on it because the substrate gets underneath it and it sort of locks the wick in place. All right, let's repot. Oh man. So I'm just gonna take the rest of the water in here and pour it on top. I always say the very first watering, the very first time you repot, you always want to top water just so that your plant can mix in nicely with the new substrate. All right, let's take a look here. It's gonna be fun getting these roots out of here. Gonna squish. It has so many blooms, and I genuinely think it's because it's so root bound. She's run out of room. Oh gosh. Okay, so let's see if I can. Okay. Ooh, this feels like really, really in there. Oops, lost a leaf already. Collateral damage. Oh, come on. Try not to. So as you can see, my previous mix had horticultural charcoal in there. And that mix is on my Patreon channel or on my YouTube memberships. All you gotta do is click join and you get access to additional videos every month on my channel. So I don't wanna cut the roots. I don't wanna devastate the plant, but I am popping a few. Again, I should have repotted this much sooner, but I was very low on ingredients. Of course, I had to pick the hardest repot for this video. Oh man, you can hear the snapping of the roots. All right, oh, we did it. I'm shaking. All right, so as you can see, the roots were just going into the reservoir looking for water. It's such a thirsty plant. But let's see, if I pull this, it's gonna rip out all of these beautiful roots. So I'm not going to do that. I will though, turn everything back over and let it sit in here. So it's a little too high. It's sitting a little too high, so I'm gonna dig a hole. It's a little too much substrate in here. I poured in too much ahead of time. Yes, I sure did. So I'm just gonna throw some back out. I'm gonna put it in the container it was in, since it has some of its existing substrate in there. I don't want to mix the old and my brand new substrate. All right, there we go. Whew. This is a workout, people. That plant put up a fight. I was gonna go work out later today, but I don't know. Feel like I got a good workout. All right, so I'm gonna pop it in here, and I think I need to sort of shake it off. Usually I don't shake the roots off too much. Pot was a lot deeper than this one. So I do need to shake the roots off a little bit, loosen them up so that it could fit, so that I can spread them in a little bit more. All of this is just from a couple of plants. It's not even that many plants in here. It's crazy. I definitely want to propagate and add some more plants in there here so the pot can be even bigger. This pot is significantly shallower compared to the previous one. So I'm just gonna pop backfill along the edges. There we go. All right, and like I've mentioned, a couple videos ago, you would have seen my DIY pond mix. That one, however, is a very specific recipe. It does have exact ratios in there as well. And of course, you could always customize your mixes. So you can check out that video if you want to try growing some of your houseplants in pond. Something I want to share is that all of this is optional. There are people who can grow their plants beautifully in soil, and there are some who struggle. And so if you are like me, who struggle to grow Hoya and some other houseplants in just soil, or maybe you don't struggle, but you don't like some of the downsides of soil, which are sometimes your plants can rot a little bit faster, or fungus gnat, maybe just for fun, you want to try something different, feel free to give this a try. But I am by no means saying that this is the only way to grow your houseplants. I think someone thought that from my pond video. You can keep things as simple or as complicated as you would like it to be. You can just add chunky perlite to soil and you can get a very aerated mix. I have done that lots of times, but like I mentioned, I only do that for my trees and my bigger plants because it just causes a lot of fungus gnats. And my smaller plants with delicate roots, with my growing conditions, it's a little bit harder to grow them like that. All right, and that's it. Oh my goodness, look at this. She's a beaut. She's huge and a lot of work. But as you can see, we are bald on the top here. So I'm going to need to take some cuttings or just wrap some of the vines around so that they can root in here. Not quite sure what I will do, but I will save that for another day because she gave me quite the workout. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope it was helpful to you. I hope it helped you to sort of use your gut when growing your plants. Sometimes it's so much easier to give a specific and exact recipe. And if you want that, I do have that available on my Patreon, on my YouTube membership. But this video is all about using what you have, knowing the power of the ingredients that you do already have to create the perfect mix, even if you're using different ingredients every time. Thank you again for watching. Give the video a thumbs up if you found it helpful to you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.